Freedom of speech is not a fundamental base good. It's just a good fundamental thing. Freedom of speech is a thing that ideally facilitates a whole bunch of other good things. It's good when a population feels like they can criticize a government, or it's good when a population feels like they can speak without being arrested because their opinion isn't popular or whatever. That doesn't mean that it's good in every single circumstance, in every single capacity, in every single way. Where are you ever at in any part of your life where you're like, oh my God, guys, let's just free speech this. Let's go ahead and brute force this problem with a whole bunch of free speech.
The issue right now is that the majority of the people in the United
541, oh boy.
States of America that carry forward that really strict free speech banner do so maliciously.
I'm having a hard time understanding what this even means. You're carrying the free speech banner maliciously? Well, the good thing about...
Don't I literally explicitly say what that means, you retarded fuck?
Freedom of speech is it doesn't matter what your intent is when you speak freely or advocate for it.
Really? Then why are people charged with conspiracy crimes that can literally just be speech? Why are people held liable for huge sums of money for defamation? Are these? Why is it that if you break a contract, I mean, like, what do you mean? There's like a million ways that your speech alone could get you in trouble. But okay.
The idea of free speech...
What about when you lie under oath?
...is that it's a universal good, regardless of what's being said.
That's not true. That's a child's understanding. That's why I hate everybody that talks about the f***ing amendments and free speech. Freedom of speech is not a fundamental base good. It's just a good fundamental thing. Freedom of speech is a thing that ideally facilitates a whole bunch of other good things. It's good when a population feels like they can criticize a government, or it's good when a population feels like they can speak without being arrested because their opinion isn't popular or whatever. That doesn't mean that it's good in every single circumstance, in every single capacity, in every single way. Where are you ever at in any part of your life where you're like, oh my God, guys, let's just free speech this. Let's go ahead and brute force this problem with a whole bunch of free speech, right? Like, I've got a developer and he's had a lot of trouble getting this program right. So what we did is we brought in 30 developers and they're all going to write code together because the best code will just rise to the top. Like, oh, we're going to we don't know how we want to do the management style for this McDonald's. So what we did is we brought in 15 managers and they're all going to have different management styles. We're going to do them all at the same time. And then the best management style is going to rise to the top. Or, there's no other facet of life where you would apply such a naive and crude understanding of how humans gather information or how you figure out what's the correct way to do things. Like, these are things that pretend that on the aggregate produce good outcomes for large groups of people. That's all it is. It's a tool. Freedom of speech is a tool. It's not you know, one of my favorite lines in all of media is, I love this line.
The question is, does the risk of a detour outweigh the benefits of an extra payload?
The concept of the movie is they're all trying to blow the sun up in the middle of it to make it produce heat again. And they found another ship that was supposed to be gone, but it's there. And now they're thinking about whether they should go and detour and grab that ship or just go to the sun. If they detour and grab it, it might be more risk, but they might have two chances. That's what the conversation is about, right? And they're all like, obviously, super fancy scientists and all that shit or whatever, right? There's just one good line here that's funny.
We're not a democracy. We're a collection of astronauts and scientists. So we're going to make the most informed decision available to us.
Why would you ever, in any other circumstance, where you're trying to figure out, like, an appointment, like, let's just leave it up to a vote, guys. Let's just vote. You wouldn't. It's just, obviously, it's fucking retarded. If you have a group of incredibly intelligent people that are all special, well, let's just go ahead and vote on this in terms of what's the thing. No, what do you mean? You'd never do this. And any incredibly specialized, capable group of people, you would all come together and decide on what the best thing is, right? Like, it's just such a stupid, we just need, oh, God, fuck. Okay, sorry.
Good. Regardless of what's being said.
They do it as a cancer, and they sneak in as a parasite to pretend that freedom of speech is what they really want, but what they really want is just the ability to lie with impunity and to do it for huge sums of cash.
But who gets to decide, Des?
I hate when people throw up this roadblock. Who gets to decide? Who gets to decide? That's a really tough question. But the reality is if you got that a little bit wrong, it would be infinitely better than what we have right now. The fundamental problem with the issue that I'm presenting here is that, and they won't ever come out and say this, they don't think there's anything wrong with the media environment that we currently live in. That's the issue. Nobody thinks right now that the media environment we live in is bad. And so when I suggest changing it at all, obviously it could be a little bit worse theoretically. So they're like, oh, well, I don't want to do that because it could be a little bit worse. But they think that the current media environment is fine. The current media environment has us on a trajectory, okay, for disaster, for ruin, all right?
destiny? Who gets to decide what is truth, what is misinformation, what is a lie, and what is not?
Like, we do this in a lot of areas already. You are aware of that, right? There's, for instance, a scientific process by which we convene a whole bunch of people together and we kind of like gather around certain things we feel are scientifically true. There are large boards of people that study certain issues, that publish research, that try to, arrive at things that they believe are relatively true. There are, in court, you can present facts in front of a jury in criminal matters and they decide basically what they believe is true. When it comes to contract law and you're having a disagreement with somebody else, you've got arbitration, they decide, right? I like how people, they say things that on their face, they sound so smart and everybody's like, yeah, true. But then if you think about it for like 2 seconds, right? Who decides what's true? Excuse me, you fucking retard. What are you, an epistemic nihilist? Are you an epistemic anti-realist? You think there's no possible way to determine if any statement is true or false ever? Do you think that's true of everything? Right? If I say that guy is taller than that guy, is that an unverifiable statement? There's no way to know? Seriously? There's not a single possible way that we can know the answer to that? There's no way to tell what's true about anything?
Is it the government that gets to decide? Is it destiny? Is it Trump? Is it Harris? Is it Tim Walz? The point is, when something is labeled as misinformation, someone is deciding that, and the government has been famously wrong about countless things in the past.
You also live in a governed society by a government that has led to the greatest amount of flourishing. I'm sorry, where are all of these successful ANCAP societies and libertarian societies, right? Why aren't you posting in fucking Somalia land, or why aren't you posting in fucking Aruba, or why? There's a reason why we're in the United States. We are the culture leaders of the world. We are the master producers of technology, of information, of entertainment, art.
No one, much less the government, has the moral authority to be the arbiter of truth for every person.
The moral authority? What do we even talk? The moral authority to be the arbiter of truth for every single person? So do you feel the same way when it comes to the state governments banning women's rights to have an abortion then? Is that a moral? Wait, when you say you can't be the moral authority to be the arbiter of truth, what about all of criminal law where the government says we can infringe upon your rights, we can take away, we can deprive you of your basic human rights if you do something that the government has decided through the people, because we live in a democracy, that the government has decided is wrong? Is that not being kind of a moral authority? Or
of truth for every person for all of time? That certainly can't be for to be the arbiter of truth for every person for all of time. That certainly can't be what you're arguing for.
It's not.
I don't know if I've ever said even anything remotely close to that. But yeah, the government and the way that they arbitrate things can also change over time. So can third parties. That arbitration can change over time. So can private institutions or corporations or individuals or family members. That can change over time. Yes.
Becoming a problem. It's not going to become a problem. It is a problem, and it has been a problem. Even if we were too heavy-handed in a media censorship environment, that would be preferable to where we are right now.
First of all, this already exists. There's already very heavy-handed censorship on almost all social media.
There's literally rampant, like the media environment has never, ever been worse. It's never been worse. Did you ever find those cameras? Yeah, they were in the package room.
With the possible exception of Twitter/X. My stuff is censored all the time, even when I'm just literally saying a fact, like a president can't overturn Roe v. Wade. That's censored. So to be
really, if I post on Facebook a president can't overturn Roe v. Wade, that's going to get censored?
Clear, what Destiny is arguing for is he is arguing for increased censorship of speech. The answer to misinformation.
It's like a collection of thought-terminating slogans. The answer to misinformation is not less speech. It's more. It's more speech. It's more freedom of speech.
It's not less speech, but it's more speech. So
if you think something's misinformation, speak out against it. And with freedom of speech, the good ideas will rise to the top.
If you think something's misinformation, go ahead and call it misinformation and tell the world why it is misinformation.
And if you're right, the crowd and the public will decide what the right answer is, and everybody will see it. And that's the only way that we can determine what's true.
You shouldn't limit the speech of other people. In fact, and John Stuart Mill wrote about this, the people that are harmed the most...
Oh, when speech is censored, are the people with what? The most important ideas or the unpopular ideas? Because popular ideas don't need protection. It's the unpopular ones that need protection. I don't know.
When speech is censored, is the people who are actually censoring that speech.
Oh, okay.
Because think about it. If the speech that they are censoring is true, then they're preventing themselves from hearing the truth, which is a bad thing. If the speech that they are censoring is untrue, then they're not allowing the untruth to get out into the open air.
Why is there a good reason to assume that free speech optimizes for truth? Isn't it more reasonable to assume it optimizes for pleasure? No, because people just have a dumb understanding of how the human brain works.
And be confronted with the actual truth, which would in turn make the truth stronger.
Because the area that we're at right now is deplorable. And there are too many people, Candace Owens, the Tim Pools, the Joe Rogans, the Robert Malones, the Lex Friedmans, these people who are, saying like, oh, we just want like all these people to come and have conversations. They're not there to have conversations. They're there to lie with impunity.
But Destiny, the great thing about freedom of speech is that if you think someone like Joe Rogan is lying with impunity, you yourself can go on a podcast like, I don't know, Impact Theory, and tell the world that you think Joe Rogan is lying with impunity.
Yeah, but I don't want to talk about that. I would rather be having a more constructive conversation on like government policy. I'd rather be talking about literally anything else than wasting all of this time trying to correct other people on being wrong about shit. What a waste of fucking time. I don't want to explain why energy and density matters when you're talking about the temperature of a particular thing to disprove why the Van Allen belt doesn't prevent us from going to the fucking moon like Candace Owens says. What a waste of time of a fucking conversation. You didn't have time to correct every single fucking minor thing on
So your free speech is confronting Joe Rogan's free speech, and then the marketplace
yes.
And decide, which is the awesome thing about freedom of speech. There's not one side censoring another side. There are just ideas, and the marketplace of ideas is this idea that the best ideas will theoretically rise to the top.
There's no reason ever to think that's true.
And if they don't,
but you can't even have, these people are too stupid to even have the conversation.
The issue right now
is absolutely, give me one good reason why I should think that the true messages will rise to the top. Like, why? Why would you ever think that?
Joe Rogan is lying with impunity, you yourself can go theory and tell the world that you think Joe Rogan is the marketplace can decide, which is the awesome thing about freedom of speech. There's not one side censoring another side. There are just ideas, and the marketplace of ideas is this idea that the best ideas will theoretically rise to the top. And if they don't, people can confront those ideas with other free speech instead of being censored.
And that's why they can never back up any of the things they say. They have no accountability. They've got horrible track records. They're shown time and time and time again to be incorrect on a large number of things, but they'll point to like one or two conspiracies that they happen to be correct about. And then they'll say, well, freedom of speech. And right now, everyone wants the privilege of freedom of speech with none of the responsibility of it.
Please say that as the last part is saying, oh, they say a lot of things. They get things wrong a ton of the times and they have no accountability. Sounds a lot like the government, Destiny. Please let that be the ending line.
It's disgusting to me.
What's disgusting to me is the continual calls for censorship of people that you disagree with. If you disagree with them, you can do what Destiny has done here and just go on a podcast and say why you disagree with them, instead of calling for censoring those people. Freedom of speech is one of the greatest barriers against tyranny that has...
And it's also one of the greatest weapons of war against democracy. It's a double. There are no things in life that are purely good. You can die if you drink too much fucking water. Like, nothing in life is good if you have an infinite amount of it. There's not a single thing that we would ever think of like that. Why would you imagine freedom of speech to be any different?
The greatest barriers against tyranny that has ever existed in the world. Because what you're saying with the idea of freedom of speech is that people can speak freely against the government without fear of the government censoring their opinions or throwing them in jail or even killing them, which has happened many times throughout world history when freedom of speech has not been a thing or not been protected. And you know what freedom of speech protects perhaps more than anything?
Oh, are we going to do the unpopular opinions here or people like Destiny?
It protects unpopular ideas.
Okay.
It protects minority ideas.
Wow.
It protects marginalized groups who want to add things to the conversation but just may not be popular right now.
Nice.
That's the thing it really protects. There's no need to protect, popular ideas.
speech.
There's no need to protect things that
almost everyone agrees with because those are popular. Nobody's going to attack or censor those.
Society agrees with because everyone agrees. There's no danger to those things.
It's got to be boring to I could have done this TikTok video when I was 16.
But here's the thing. World history has shown us that many ideas that were accepted by broad swaths of people, in fact, almost all of society, things like geocentrism and spontaneous generation, were wrong. And we had to revise our ideas on that. So if censorship was in place, as it often was at that time, those ideas were censored. The truth was censored. We've seen,
You know that like Hitler's party, like Hitler was appointed like fair and square, right? The Nazi party was winning electoral seats. It's not like they did fascism and then the bad things came. It's not like they blocked freedom of speech and then the bad things happened, right? Like you can use the process and abuse the process to get to undemocratic places.
seen that time and time and time again throughout world history. The unintended consequences of suppressing speech, even speech that you see as misinformation, are catastrophic.
It's true that there are limitations of the virtues of free speech, but are you really against free speech now? No, you fucking retard. I'm not saying I'm against free speech. I'm generally for free speech, but you recognize what free speech is and what it's for. Free speech is not a mechanism for arriving at the truth. You never, ever, ever would apply that in any other circumstance in your life. That's a naive child's view of freedom of speech, especially as the only people that hold that are the people that lie the most. It's fucking stupid. Okay. Sorry. This used to be a thing a long time ago, and it's like coming back with Elon. That idea that, engineers can do everything. I'm sincerely trying to find this. Can somebody steelman me? Can somebody give me one good video where Elon legitimately sounds like he understands like principles of engineering or understands like it says something insightful or intelligent about engineering, please? Because I racked my brain on this after I talked to Tom, because I was like, have I ever heard a video where I've thought that Elon's like, oh, that's a really good point. I never thought of it. Like, oh, okay, that's pretty insightful. He's definitely like, I know that there are like stories of him sleeping on the Tesla floor and all that, but is there actually, because when I heard him speak to the that programmer that worked at Twitter, that rewrote so much of Elon to me, in that I rewrote him completely as a CEO. I'm like, oh, this guy doesn't know anything about engineering whatsoever. Nothing in software development is unique to software development like workflows. It's not like, if anything, it feels like software development has just rediscovered principles of engineering that have been known in other fields. Like, oh fuck, maybe it's, the measure twice and cut once can actually apply to code as well, right? Who knows? Like so I'm curious if there's anything, just like a single video or something of Elon speaking about something or doing something, not hearsay, not a person saying like, oh yeah, Elon is so smart, but like something where he's talking like, oh yeah, it seems like this guy really knows what the fuck he's. Oh. Pertaining to SpaceX in this interview. Okay, please.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. Welcome back to Starbase, Texas. This is, of course, where SpaceX is building their Starship vehicles. This is part one of two parts. In part one, we're going to take you around the factory, see what's new, see the ships, see the boosters, see Star Factory from the inside for the first time, and just learn a lot along the way. So stay tuned for part two, where we'll take you out to the launch pad, and we'll also follow up with Elon after the launch and see how it went. So without further ado, let's go on another tour with Elon Musk. Cool. So yeah, as we were saying, I mean, obviously a lot has changed in the last couple of years. I mean, this is all. Maybe in theory, I don't know. I mean,
it's exactly the same. It hasn't changed a bit.
That was always the criticism of Steve Jobs too, that he's just got big ideas, none of the actual technical know-how. I think Elon's similar. Yeah, but I don't think I don't think Steve Jobs claimed differently, did he? I don't know if anybody thought that or maybe they did at one point in time, that Steve Jobs is a really good engineer or whatever.
What once was tense is now a permanent looking factory.
Yeah, it used to be intense, and now it's in a building.
Yeah.
So we've got this, I think, pretty good looking rocket factory building that we've almost completed. Completed the exterior.
Hold on, I'm grabbing a Red Bull, 1 sec. I think Steve Jobs thought very highly of himself. Yeah, but did he think of himself as like a programmer, or software developer, or whatever? Maybe he was. I'm not. Like he could have. I'm genuinely asking, maybe.
This will enable us to have serialized production of the rocket, especially the ship, which would ultimately be made, long term, probably be making 1,000 a year of the ship. So,
1,000 a year.
Yeah, well, gotta build a city on Mars.
Yeah, that's insane to think about.
Yeah, I mean, we may not build 1,000 a year right here, but I think this is.
Okay, so Dan doesn't lose his fucking mind. Here. A congressional letter has been sent to the leadership of both Amazon and Twitch to sound the alarm about the amplification of anti-Semitism on Twitch. Sean Piker, who is described Orthodox Jews as inbred and a Jewish man as a bloodthirsty pig, is the anti-Semitic voice of systematically anti-Semitic platform led by Dan Clancy. The time has come to hold Sean Piker and Dan Clancy accountable. There you go.
This is capable of 100 a year.
Really?
Sure.
Wow.
It's only a ship every 3 days.
And
that's nothing.
Well, and it's funny because now, if you think about it, even Falcon 9 these days, you're producing in second.
X Kills Me says that's AIPAC money at work, dollars. While Destiny goes on about the integrity of democracy and Russian influence in online content, his community has actually been appropriated by foreign interest groups. So one, AIPAC is not an interest group funded foreignly. If you mean that they're interested in Israel, maybe. Number one, so that is the AIPAC comparing to like Russian influence that's covert is stupid because Russia influence in the United States is covert. They don't declare who they are and nobody declares that they're working for them. And number three, I'm not taking AIPAC money. I don't get money from AIPAC or anything, but okay. You can have an interest that aligns with another country sometimes. That doesn't mean you're appropriated by them. Like that is possible. I don't know if X Kills Me got too into the MAGA shit, and now he's like a Jew hater or whatever. But
second stage about every 2 days, and a few years ago that would have been impossible. No one would have imagined. Yeah, that they're building.
This year we'll make almost 200 upper stages of Falcon.
That's unbelievable.
Next year, probably over 200.
That's that's like a cadence of people I don't think are, just even you can't even imagine. You can't even fathom that kind of output like that. That's just
Falcon
crazy.
9 is actually a heavy lift vehicle, so it's there's roughly 40,000 pounds to orbit.
Yeah.
Which is in normal rocket language would be a heavy lift.
Yeah.
So now Starship's going to be able to do 100 tons to orbit with Starship 2, maybe a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
With Starship 3, like at the 9 meter diameter, essentially when the 9 meter diameter is sort of fully stretched out to what ends up being from 120 meters total length to probably 140 or something like that. Then this is like a lot of optimizations, engine improvements, heat shield mass improvements, reducing the amount of propellant needed for landing. Kind of basically do all the things that we've somewhat done with Falcon 9, and you get to a pretty efficient vehicle. I think we'll be able to do over 200 tons to useful orbit with Starship.
Insane.
And that's with full reusability.
people always say it's not fair to expect a CEO to know all the technical details of the company, but forget that this is exactly what Elon speaks and acts like. Yeah, I'm not expecting him to, but he says it all the time. He can't even admit AIPAC's interest is in Israel. So what would you expect? He calls it a maybe. AIPAC has an interest in Jewish people and in maintaining like U.S. like alignment with Israel. Sure, I'm not funded by AIPAC though. What does AIPAC have to do with anything I'm doing? I don't know what the point of even. But AIPAC is also like a publicly known thing in the United States. They don't like secretly fund people, or if they do, I haven't heard about it.
But it's a full reusability,
which is insane. So that's twice the Saturn V with full reusability, and full and rapid reusability. So it's the booster and the ship are coming back to the launch site.
Right. Should we take a look at what's going on in there? So, so as far as we're seeing all this. Talking about even version 1, maybe be able to do less than 100. But is version 1 really even gonna? I feel like version 1 in my head.
Version 1 is just to the point of, and really kind of Starship. We're version 1.67. I don't know.
Right,
it's like we're like many iterations through on version 1.
Yeah.
So.
It's just a canvas. It's a test experiment still at this phase. It's just
I think he's saying Richie Torres is a Zog and being funded by. Oh, Richie Torres? I don't know. He might be getting funded by AIPAC. So what? What the fuck does that have to do with anything?
I don't think people they see it and they don't understand that like this is all just still a giant test at this stage.
Yeah, one way to look at technology is to look at it as like you're rendering an image in successive levels of detail. So the first layer of the image is very, very blurry and things are out of place, and then with the next pass, it gets a bit more defined, and things kind of shift into place. And you do another pass and another pass, and eventually it's something that is refined and actually works.
Right.
But we're in uncharted territory with Starship, so there's not like nobody's ever made a fully reusable orbital rocket.
Right.
And that's really the critical breakthrough necessary for life to become multiplanetary. For us to become a true spacefaring civilization, we have to achieve full and rapid reusability.
Yeah.
So I call it rapidly reusable, reliable rockets.
R squared. Or R.
RRR.
Yeah.
Pirate. Space pirates.
There we go.
So,
and it's the thing that the people need to remember is achieving orbit's been solved. I mean, you guys have been getting to orbit for a long time. Reusing it.
Getting to orbit at all was solved in the 50s.
I never said you were funded by AIPAC. I said your community is being used by AIPAC to try to influence Twitch policy. What if we are using AIPAC? What do you mean? Very violent. We're the one using AIPAC. Lemeo. Nope. You all got manipulated by Dan to go on his crusade. You are the ones being used. Oh, well, if you say so. Never mind then. All right.
Right. I mean, or, so I really don't think there's another point in an expendable rocket, in my opinion. Or at least I think the math clearly demonstrates that there is no point in an expendable rocket. You have to achieve reusability. We have reusability in cars, we have it in airplanes, we have it in bicycles, horses. Yeah. It's bizarre to not have reusability in any other form of transport. Boats, it would be insane to chuck a boat away after every trip. Right. But this is how rockets have worked for the vast majority of time. In fact, SpaceX is still the only rocket that has any reusability with Falcon 9. Right. So with Falcon 9, we bring the boosters back. We refly them frequently. We bring the fairings back. We refly those. It's only the upper stage that is expended. Right. Now, Falcon 9 does not qualify as rapidly reusable, right? Because most of the time the booster is landing on a ship in the ocean. Right. So it'll take a few days to get it back. Yeah. Oh, that's speeding up like crazy. I mean,
this video has one section where he talks about the engineering process.
What I'm trying to have us all just implement rigorously is the sort of 5-step process. First, make your requirements less dumb. Your requirements are definitely dumb. It does not matter who gave them to you. It's particularly dangerous if a smart person gave you the requirements, because you might not question them enough.
Yeah, you might take it as like gospel, like yes. I have to do this thing.
Everyone's wrong, no matter who you are. Everyone's wrong some of the time. So make your requirements less dumb. Then try very hard to delete the part or process. This is actually very important. If you're not occasionally adding things back in, you are not deleting enough. Right. The bias tends to be very strongly towards let's add this part or process step in case we need it. But you can basically make in-case arguments for so many things. And for a rocket that is trying to achieve trying to be the first fully reusable rocket, there's never been a fully reusable rocket. People don't understand. Like this is like the holy grail of rocketry. 100%. Okay, and so you really need you have to run at tight margins, because if you don't run tight margins, you're gonna get nothing to orbit. Right. So you got to delete the part or process step. Super important. And you can't hedge your bets. That's why the grid fins, for example, do not fold down, because that's a whole extra mechanism that we don't need.
And then compensate for it by having strong enough engine authority to steer it in the lower atmosphere.
Actually, our simulations show that we don't really need any extra engine authority. As long as the grid fins, basically follow the flow, they're not really disturbing the flow. It's really neither here nor there. So as long as they don't have a high angle of attack, it doesn't matter.
A few degrees or something, or within a degree or two.
So, but in any case, something we could add later. Right. So now these grid fins are humongous. We'll go see them.
Okay, this section is better than I think most anything else I've heard him talk about. But maybe I've heard him talk about the fucking Cybertruck or whatever too much. So okay.
They're like a dinosaur bear trap. Okay, it's like a bear trap or a dinosaur. That's what these things look like. And if you have a whole mechanism for folding them, that's clearly a part that we don't need. Yep. So this was a good design decision.
Although I mean, they still also sound kind of basic, but at least it's not crazy retarded shit. Check this one.
This is absolutely brilliant. Are you ready for this? Let's go.
I believe you chose a stainless steel for the vehicle. I could be wrong, but what were the technical and engineering reasons for that? And don't stint on the details.
Because to a lot of people, intuitively, they would think of steel as being heavy, and rockets need to be light. So, that seems a pretty odd choice, picking a heavy-sounding thing for rockets, especially orbital rockets that need to be very light. The nature of Earth's gravity being quite strong and a dense atmosphere means that you really have to have an incredibly good propellant mass percentage. And you have to have very efficient engines to get anything to orbit at all. We started off with an advanced composite. So intuitively, if you ask people who understand materials, they will say, we want to make something incredibly light. They'll say, probably you want to use state-of-the-art carbon fiber composite. That's usually what they'll say. And that's what we started out with, which was really a very advanced carbon fiber. Actually, it was only made in very small quantities. It cost $130 per kilogram, so it was very expensive material. And there are some challenges if you want to make the primary structure out of carbon fiber, which is that you've got to contain cryogenic fluid, and you need.
Okay, I don't know how to explain this. I don't know how to express this. Okay, when I say that I want to hear somebody speak intelligently about a thing, or just say something where I feel like you understand what you're talking about. Okay, okay. Right now, Elon is talking about how he says something that's kind of basic, but maybe people don't understand, right? You obviously, steel is good because it's strong, but it's really heavy. And then he gets more specific. Well, there are certain composite materials you can look into, that will give you they're light and they're transportable, and then he talks about exceptions to this, like it can be really expensive, right? It sounds like right now, what he's talking about here is something that it feels like, because he's not just talking about a couple discrete things. He's interweaving and connecting a lot of pieces of information relating to rocketry. So this right now sounds like the most I've ever heard him speak where I'm like, oh, he seems like he actually really does understand this. I don't know what it is. I'm listening to him talk about AI, his car shit, or 90% of the time I hear him speaking somewhere, it just sounds like he's saying random middle manager. I shouldn't even say middle manager, because those guys do need to understand to some extent what they're interfacing with. But okay, this sounds like he actually knows what he's talking about.
gas in sort of what's called ullage gas, pressurization gas, to pressurize the propellants in the main tanks and feed the engine turbo pumps with a given inlet pressure. So if you have a carbon fiber tank, because it tends to be porous, and also
so he's talking about different trade-offs between different materials, efficiencies he needs to reach, like different types of okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. At least for SpaceX, then it sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Maybe, hopefully.
Actually, flammable.
This is all business stuff right now, right? No, it's not just business. It's business and physics, right? And in engineering, end quotes, right?
When subject to warm gaseous pure oxygen, because our vehicle is autonomously pressurized. So the oxygen tank is pressurized with gaseous oxygen, and the fuel tank is pressurized with gaseous methane. The resin and the carbon in the carbon fiber is potentially flammable with hot, pure oxygen gas. So you'd have to have some kind of liner. So when you look at the full mass and complexity of a carbon fiber system, you start having things that reduce the mass efficiency of carbon fiber, such as having an inert liner and being worried about gas permeating through the carbon fiber and that kind of thing. So, but it's still an okay choice. However, we were having a lot of trouble making progress with carbon fiber because this is a 9-meter diameter rocket. And so you're wrapping carbon fiber with typically, in this case, 60 or 220 plies, depending upon where you are in the tank.
Maybe it's because SpaceX was a pure passion thing for him, Tesla less so, and Twitter was purely about reactionary politics. Maybe his passion on it correlates to his ability to understand it. Maybe. I don't know what I've heard him say in terms of Tesla, where it sounds like he's a really good understanding of cars. But I will say this. I was the only person to say this 4 years ago, and I will still say this as much as I hate him, and I think he's probably one of the most damaging figures in America right now. SpaceX and Tesla are two unbelievably amazing brands, regardless of how shit Tesla cars are now in terms of Q and everything. I genuinely feel like Tesla pushed like electric cars forward by 10 or 20 years. Like I feel like nobody was really taking electric cars seriously until Tesla came about. And even today, I'm still not sure if people are taking electric cars as seriously as they could be. Like Tesla pushed that industry forward a lot. And SpaceX, the idea of America, even if the rockets weren't able to be caught or land back on Earth, it's cool that we launch rockets again. That's really good. Destiny, it just feels like he's regurgitating things people have explained to him. In this right here, none of this feels like it's regurgitated. He's speaking about particular problems, particular issues they ran into with particular materials and like reasons why they don't work and exploring alternatives. This sounds like what he's talking about here. Everything he's talked about so far, to me, it sounds like he really understands what he's talking about right now. Like you could ask him a specific question about any of this and he could tell you why a particular material was good. It was too expensive, he said, for one, or why one didn't work. It was too flammable, right? This sounds like this is not a memorized, I don't believe that this is just memorized shit from his engineers. It sounds like he has an understanding, some level of understanding of what he's talking about. I don't know how to express that or why, but this is what it sounds like he is understanding, yeah.
And you have to get all of those wrappings accurate and not to leave bubbles or separator sheets or all the things that typically happen, or you've got to scrap the whole thing. And then you've got to get good mass properties, put it in an autoclave and put it under a lot of pressure. And then you need a gigantic autoclave because it's a 9-meter diameter with a 70-meter long boost.
If you think that Elon is dumb, you 100% have deep partisan brain rot. No, the issue that's so difficult for me to figure out is that I don't understand how people, and maybe this is the human, maybe it's more normal than I'm giving it credit for. I don't understand how people can be so intelligent in some areas and so fucking unbelievably stupid in other areas. It's very hard for me to understand that. People have no humility when it comes to exploring unrelated fields, or they don't seem to carry any of the epistemic lessons from one field to the next, right? Oh, in order to learn this thing about rockets, I had to do all this research, all this reading, all this studying, all this engineering, all this CEOing. I had to do all this. And then when it comes to something else, like, oh, medicine and pharmacology, well, I know all of that immediately because I read a tweet. But I'm sure that Elon has seen tweets or things where people try to step in and tell him about rockets where he's like, this is so cringe, bro. What the fuck? You don't know what you're talking about. But yeah, I don't know.
Stage. So this is autoclave from hell. And we just weren't making rapid progress with this material. So then the next step, the other two materials we're considering are high strength form of aluminium, or potentially steel. So for Falcon 9, we use aluminum lithium, which is the highest strength weight aluminum alloy that you can use. Very difficult to weld. But that's what we use for the primary structure of Falcon 9. But the problem is it's very difficult to weld. You need to do friction stir welding, and also the material cost is quite high. That's sort of material cost. I'll give that.
Do you actually think he doesn't realize that, or that he's more calculated at the way he's acting? I have no idea. I don't know.
On the sort of $40 a kilogram level.
I just want to interrupt really quick to say that was a pretty good rundown.
Okay, thank you. All right, at least I know he's not retarded when it comes to rockets. Okay.
Hey, I watched your Pierce Dave Smith thing. There was some little tangent that Dave Smith went on. He was talking about Syria and Obama and Bush and anything that wasn't Trump-Harris. Mm-hmm. There was a whole bunch of shit there that he said about Syria that he was alluding to, and Assad, that was just very not veridical.
True.
Not even slightly.
Yeah, the only reason I didn't want to get into this with him is because he does know a lot of like esoteric like WikiLeaks cables. So I don't know if he's going to pull one out. Like, I don't know. But my understanding is it's always been a major contention that the Obama administration like indirectly smuggled weapons or helped or assisted the smuggling of weapons to like the FSA through Turkey and shit in the beginning of that. But the to say that it was like all caused by America, like it's, and I think I said this on the Pure Show, but nobody engaged with it, and I don't want to get into this whole debate, but like it's like he's pretending that like what happened around 2011 that would have involved countries like Libya and Syria and the rest of the Middle East. It's like, are we remembering the Arab Spring, or did that just not happen, or like?
Yeah, he won't. But I guess it felt like he was bringing up more and more niche things, just because I guess he knew he was out of his depth talking to you and Mehdi about the current topic. So
yeah, of course. And he lives in that like Iraq, Middle East, foreign policy thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like boomer RT watcher shit. But yeah, like what he was saying about. So yeah, the thing with Obama's role in it is very much conjecture because of like the FSA sometimes getting involved with Al Qaeda and Al Nusra and ISIS. But the Assad connection to ISIS is so much worse than like anything that you could imply with the United States. During the Iraq War, after Saddam was gone, and around like 2006-07, a lot of Al Qaeda activity in Iraq was being supported either knowingly or just having a blind eye turned to it in Syria. A lot of those Al Qaeda fighters in Iraq attacking the government and America and all that, they came from Syria, and they were allowed to operate in Syria without any pushback from the government, to the point that even people who had been appointed as Ba'ath Party higher-ups by Assad were directly financing and arming and facilitating the heads of Al Qaeda in Iraq, which was eventually what became ISIS. Like ISIS came from Al Qaeda in Iraq. And not only that, but there's also like reports on this from the time all the way through. There are captured documents from Al Qaeda in Iraq showing basically how they were able to get fake passports and weapons, and how they were able to smuggle across the border, and how like suicide bombings in Iraq were being carried out by people who were able to move through Syria. And it was all very much like it was facilitated. It was completely allowed. So there's no question, I think, that the regime knew about it. It's just why they chose to do it is a bit more contentious.
Sure.
But yeah, the Americans were talking about this the entire time, and this continued even after the Arab Spring, because there's just like this whole thing about conservatives or Israelis or anyone else who will say like, oh, everyone we killed in this strike is a terrorist, right? Like everyone we're fighting is a terrorist. But
sure, yeah, we say that all the time. Yeah.
No one does that more than Assad. Like Assad's whole thing is that all my enemies are terrorists. So in the Arab Spring, when he was arbitrarily arresting a bunch of peaceful protesters and opponents, secular, democratic, whatever, he also issued a general amnesty decree that got a bunch of people pulled out of jail, many of whom were some of the most dangerous terrorists in the country, and many of whom ended up becoming high-ranking people in ISIS and Al Qaeda in Syria. And he did that because he wanted to overshadow the more democratic parts of the protests with terrorists, because it's much more easy to say our enemies are terrorists, even though he basically was the one who allowed them out of jail. And throughout the entire war, it was the same blind eye. Like Syria didn't actually do that much to fight with ISIS and Al Qaeda. They actually, in a lot of cases, just let them do their own thing. They were, because have you ever heard people say that? I think Dave Smith said it as well. He said that, the Assad regime, largely the people they fought were Al Qaeda and ISIS. You heard him say that?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, like leftists will say that as well. Like people who support Hezbollah or whoever.
I also like that, like in the West, we
yeah.
have like a terrorist like box, and like all the terrorists are like on the same team. So like ISIS and Al Qaeda and the Taliban and like all those are like the terrorist team. And then so people will say shit like, I can't believe that we're helping down here. Like, did you know that the Houthis are fighting against Al Qaeda, for instance? So how can the Houthis possibly be the bad guys? And it's like, okay, well, that's pretty fucking retarded. It is true that Al Qaeda's down there fighting, but like, it's just dumb. Yeah.
Yeah. Cause what I thought until recently was that, they would have fought with ISIS and Al Qaeda, but they also mostly fought with people who were pro-democracy, more moderate, more like Western leaning and all that. So it's just that whole thing. It's like, you're so against everyone's, like people saying, oh, these people that we killed are Hamas, but apparently it's okay for Assad to just say everyone's ISIS or like Al Qaeda. But it's worse than that. Like Syria didn't fight with ISIS all that much at all for most of this war. Whilst they were fighting very aggressively with rebels, they actually left a lot of very conspicuously placed ISIS locations alone. Like there was an ISIS HQ in Raqqa that everyone knew where it was. American intel knew where it was. The press knew where it was. But Assad, for whatever reason, while he was bombing everywhere else, just left that one alone. And he also, whilst everyone else was placing financial restrictions on the banks that were run in ISIS territory, Assad didn't. He just let them carry on. And also people in his regime, people who were very close to him, were becoming middlemen to purchase oil and to trade and sell and buy grain and wheat back and forth between them as well. So not only did they not really fight ISIS and Al-Qaeda that much, they actually helped them in a lot of ways. Like ISIS wouldn't have become what they became were it not for
probably a confluence of a lot of different things, right?
Helping them beforehand.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, the situation is more complicated over there than they're just like good guys and bad guys, and the U.S. sometimes goes over and supports the bad guys. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. There's also a very funny quote as well that when Hezbollah were involved, they won a few battles against ISIS on the Lebanon-Syria border, and rather than taking prisoners or just finishing the job against ISIS in those areas, they actually allowed them to evacuate in the hope that they would go somewhere else and fight with rebels, like more Free Syria Army or Democratic Front rebels. And Nasrallah at the time publicly defended it. And there's even a speech here where he does this a lot, actually, it turns out. He would, when he defeated ISIS in a battle or something, he would always say this is a victory against like the West or against Israel. Like when he fought against ISIS or Al-Qaeda, he would say that they were fighting against Israel because they would do that thing again where like all our enemies are like America, Western, Zionist, everything else, as well as, I guess, Islamic fundamentalist terrorists.
Sure.
Yeah. But anyway, I just thought I'd plug that little gap there.
Okay. Are you here now?
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
I'm looking out and I can see the beach.
Wow.
A nice day.
Wait, are you in Miami Beach or are you over in Miami?
No, I can see Miami Beach. I'm in Miami.
Fuck you.
I was at the beach yesterday, though. Yeah.
Hold on.
All right. You have a good day then.
All right. I love you. Be careful.